My girlfriend lied, cheated, and went on a vacation with her ex. Now, she's left stranded and I'm finally free. I'm 28, male, and I thought I had my life on track. I've got a decent job, live in a pretty good apartment, and until recently, I had a girlfriend, C, who I thought I was going to marry someday. We've been together for nearly 3 years. It wasn't perfect, no relationship is, but I was all in. I trusted her. At least, I used to, but something had been off for a few months. You ever get that gut feeling, the one that whispers, something's not right, but you don't have proof? Yeah, that's what I was feeling. C had started getting weird with her phone, keeping it close, tilting the screen away when she texted. She suddenly had all these work trips and girls' weekends, but when I asked for more details, she got defensive. I didn't want to push it too much at first. You try to be a good boyfriend, not one of those paranoid guys who constantly checks up on his girl. I convinced myself I was overthinking things, but still, I couldn't shake the feeling. I mean, we shared a joint bank account. We opened it together when we started saving for a house. If something was up, I figured it would show in the account. Then one day, I noticed it. $3,000. Gone in one withdrawal. No heads up. Nothing. I tried to stay calm. I wasn't going to jump to conclusions, so I brought it up casually. Hey babe, what's up with this $3,000 withdrawal? You buy something big? She didn't even look up from her phone. Oh yeah, I booked a girl's trip with M&T, she said, like it was no big deal. I stared at her, trying to keep my voice steady. A girl's trip? He didn't mention that. She rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed. I didn't think I needed to give you a play-by-play of my plans. That hit me like a slap to the face. I wasn't asking for her to report every little thing, but $3,000 was a big deal, especially when we were supposed to be saving for a house. It's just, that's a lot of money, see, and we're supposed to be saving, remember? Now she looked at me like I was the crazy one. We'll make it back. Relax, it's not the end of the world. The way she brushed it off just pissed me off, but I bit my tongue and let it slide. Maybe I was overreacting, I thought. Maybe she just needed a break, and I shouldn't be making it into a thing. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Something about it felt wrong. So I did something I've never done before in our entire relationship. I went through her phone. I wasn't proud of it, but sometimes you just know when someone's lying to you. And sure enough, there it was. A whole thread of texts, emails, and confirmations, flights, hotel bookings, everything. She wasn't going on a girl's trip. She was going on vacation with her ex. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding. It wasn't just a few messages. This was planned. They'd been talking for weeks, setting up this whole thing behind my back. My stomach turned. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was the betrayal, the lies. I had trusted her, and she just threw it all away. I could have confronted her right then, but something inside me snapped. I wanted her to feel the same panic I was feeling. So I waited. I acted like everything was normal, like I didn't know a damn thing. I even kissed her goodbye when she left for her girls' trip the next morning, telling her to have fun. And as soon as she walked out that door, I went straight to my laptop and froze our joint bank account. I wasn't thinking about whether it was the right thing to do. I was hurt, and I wanted her to feel that hurt. If she was going to betray me like that, I was going to make sure she knew it wasn't going to go down quietly. Hours later, my phone rang. It was her. What the hell did you do? She screamed as soon as I picked up. I leaned back in my chair, trying to hide the satisfaction in my voice. What are you talking about? My card's getting declined. Everywhere. What did you do to the account? Oh, I froze it. Thought that was the least I could do after finding out you're on vacation with your ex, I said, keeping my voice cold and calm. Silence. There was just her breathing on the other end. And then came the bullshit. It's not what you think. Cut the crap, see? I read everything. The emails. The texts. You lied to me. You've been planning this for weeks. She stumbled over her words, still trying to scramble together some kind of excuse, but there was nothing she could say that would fix this. I didn't even let her finish. Why? I asked, my voice harder than I intended. Why would you do this? If you wanted to be with him, Why didn't you just leave me? I didn't want to hurt you, she started, and that's when I laughed. Actually laughed. It was cold, bitter, and it didn't sound like me. You didn't want to hurt me? So instead, you lie to me, steal our money, and go on a fucking vacation with your ex? That was your brilliant plan to not hurt me? There was a pause, and then her tone shifted. She dropped the guilt act and went straight to defense. You know what? Maybe if you weren't so fucking obsessed with saving for that stupid house, I wouldn't have had to do this. You've been so focused on the future. You forgot about me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to flip this around. Make it my fault that she was sneaking off with her ex behind my back. What the hell are you talking about? You couldn't have talked to me? You couldn't have told me how you were feeling instead of lying to my face? She sighed, exasperated, like I was the one making this difficult. You just don't get it. I needed space. I needed time away to think. With him? You needed space for me with your ex? How the hell does that make sense? He's just a friend, she snapped. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep from losing it. Right, just a friend. That's why you had to lie about it. That's why you had to sneak around and hide this from me. She didn't say anything, and I could practically feel her thinking, trying to figure out how to twist this into something that made sense. But I wasn't having any of it. We're done, I said, finally breaking the silence. Wait, what? You're breaking up with me? Over this? You've got some nerve acting surprised, see? You lied. You used our money to go on a secret trip with your ex. What did you think was going to happen? You can't just leave me stranded here, she yelled, panic creeping into her voice. How am I supposed to get home? I felt nothing for her in that moment. No sympathy. No guilt. Just cold, hard reality. Not my problem, I said. You made your choices. Now deal with the consequences. I hung up before she could say another word. The days that followed were a blur. I moved out of the apartment, got my name off the lease, canceled all the bills I had in my name. I blocked her on everything. Phone, social media, email. I wasn't about to give her any more access to my life. I was done. A couple of weeks later, I found out she was telling people that I had abandoned her, that I had stranded her without a penny to her name. She was making herself out to be the victim, like I had just up and left her for no reason. The first time I heard about it from a mutual friend, I laughed. It was classic C. She always knew how to spin things to make herself look innocent, no matter how deep in the shit she was. But I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. So I told my side. Everything. The lies. The ex. The money. Some people were shocked. Others, not so much. They knew her. They knew how manipulative she could be. Most people sided with me, but there were still a few who believed her sob story. Whatever. Let them. I wasn't about to waste any more energy on her or her drama. In the end, it hurt, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't the loss of her that stunned the most. It was realizing that the person I thought I knew never really existed. She had been wearing a mask the whole time, and I was just too blind to see it. But here's the thing. People will show you who they are, eventually. You just have to pay attention. And when they do, you can either ignore it, keep hoping they'll change, or you can do what I did. Walk away. I haven't heard much about C since. Last I knew, she was couch surfing at a friend's place because she couldn't afford rent after I left. Apparently, she tried to get the money back from the trip, but the flights and hotel were non-refundable. I guess that's what happens when you blow $3,000 on a lie. Part of me wonders if her ex even stuck around, or if she was left high and dry, just like she deserved. But honestly, I don't really care anymore. What I've learned from this whole mess is that you can't control what other people do. You can only control how you respond to it. And when someone shows you who they really are, when they lie, cheat, manipulate, you have to be willing to walk away, no matter how much it hurts at the time. Staying in something like that only destroys you in the long run. Sure, I'm pissed that I lost years of my life to her, but I'm more pissed at myself for ignoring the signs. The truth is, the writing was on the wall long before I found those texts. I just didn't want to see it. I kept telling myself she was better than that she wouldn't do something like this. But I was wrong. People don't change just because you want them to. And sometimes the only way to move forward is to cut them off completely. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.
My parents abandoned me to fix their marriage. Now, they want me back to get their inheritance. I'm 25. Growing up, my parents' marriage was like watching a volcano that never stopped erupting. They were fundamentally incompatible from the start. My dad, the penny-pinching control freak who counted every dollar, and my mom, the free spirit who believed money was meant to be spent. Picture those volatile high school relationships, where couples break up and make up every other week. Except my parents were trapped together by marriage, a mortgage, and me. Their arguments would start over the smallest things. A minor disagreement or misunderstanding would quickly escalate into full-blown warfare. Objects flying across rooms, glass shattering against walls, and physical altercations between them became my normal. As a kid, I never understood why they were always so angry. All I knew was that their fights terrified me. When they'd start yelling, I'd cry. It was the only way I knew how to express my fear and confusion. But instead of comfort, my crying just made them angrier. They'd turn their rage on me, screaming at me to be quiet. I learned pretty quickly that showing any emotion wasn't safe in my own home. My maternal grandparents finally stepped in when I was 13. They'd been watching from the sidelines for years, growing increasingly concerned about the impact my parents' toxic relationship was having on me. Looking back, I think what finally pushed them to act was my rapid weight loss that year. I'd stopped eating regularly, too anxious about triggering another fight at the dinner table. They organized an intervention, gathering other family members who'd witnessed the dysfunction firsthand. They sat my parents down in our living room, the same one where so many fights had erupted, and laid out their ultimatum. "This stops now," my grandfather said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of respect in our family. "Either you two get professional help, or you separate. We won't stand by and watch you destroy each other and your child anymore." My grandmother, usually the gentler one, was equally firm. "Look at your daughter," she said, gesturing to where I sat, thin and pale, in the corner. "Really look at her. Is this the life you wanted for her?" For once my parents were silent. Maybe it was seeing their behavior reflected in the eyes of people they respected. Maybe it was finally noticing what they'd done to me. Whatever the reason, they agreed to marriage counseling. The changes were gradual at first. The explosive fights became less frequent. When they did disagree, they started using the communication techniques their therapist had taught them. Our home grew quieter, less tense. I started to hope that maybe things were finally getting better. But as their relationship improved, I noticed something else happening. They began pulling away from me. The small ways they used to show they cared. Mom making my breakfast, Dad driving me to school, just stopped. Instead, they'd hand me money for lunch and tell me to take the bus. They started going on date nights, working on their relationship, which would have been great, except they'd leave me with no dinner plans, just a casual, "there's leftovers in the fridge" thrown over their shoulders as they headed out. They were so focused on fixing their marriage that they forgot they were still parents. When I turned 15, I finally worked up the courage to ask for my first birthday party. After years of watching other kids celebrate with friends and cake and decorations, I thought maybe now that things were better I could have that too. "A party?" Dad scoffed. "Do you know how much that would cost?" "We're not made of money," Mom added. "You need to stop finding ways to waste it." Something in me snapped. Years of feeling neglected and unwanted came pouring out. "Why did you even have me if you hate me so much?" I screamed, tears streaming down my face. "All you care about is your stupid marriage. You don't even act like parents anymore." The slap caught me off guard. My mother had never hit me before. The sting of her hand across my face was nothing compared to the cold fury in her eyes. "You ungrateful little brat," she hissed. "You should be thankful we've done as much as we have for you." I looked to my dad for support, but he just shook his head in disappointment. "You need to grow up," he said. Stop acting like a child. A week later, they called me into the living room. They sat on the couch, holding hands, looking more united than I'd ever seen them. That should have been my first warning. Your mother and I have been talking, Dad began, his voice eerily calm. Our marriage is finally in a good place. We're happy together. But there's still one major issue we need to address. He paused, looking me directly in the eyes. You have a problem, he said simply. Having you around is a constant reminder of the mistakes we made when we were young. The counseling helped us realize we share the same feelings. We never wanted to be parents. We tried to make it work, Mom added, her voice distant. But your recent behavior has shown us it's just not going to get better. We need a fresh start. They wanted me to move in with my grandparents immediately. If that didn't work out, I'd have to figure something else out on my own. They delivered this life-shattering news with complete indifference, like they were discussing a minor home repair rather than abandoning their child. I sat there, frozen, as they explained how my presence was the last obstacle to their perfect marriage, how they'd only kept me because they felt obligated, how they could finally be truly happy if they didn't have to pretend to be parents anymore. My grandparents came to my rescue as soon as they heard. My grandmother was livid, practically vibrating with rage as she confronted my mother. How dare you? She demanded. She is your child, your flesh and blood. If you care so much, my father said coldly, you take her. We're done playing house. My grandfather, always the calmer one, simply told me to pack my things. As I stuffed clothes into bags, tears blurring my vision, I kept hoping my parents would change their minds, that they'd realize what they were doing and stop me. Instead, they sat at the kitchen table, holding hands and quietly discussing vacation plans, while I walked out of their lives. The first few weeks at my grandparents' house were the darkest of my life. Nightmares kept me up at night, dreams where I was banging on my parents' door while they pretended not to hear me. The stress manifested physically. I developed stomach ulcers, lost more weight, and my grades plummeted. I kept calling and texting my parents, desperate for any response. But my calls went straight to voicemail, and my texts were left unread. Each rejection felt like another knife in my heart. One day, as my grandmother was combing my hair, something she'd started doing to comfort me, she broke down crying. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, her hands trembling. You deserve so much better than this. We love you so much, sweetheart. That moment was my wake-up call. Here was someone who genuinely loved me, hurting because I was hurting. I realized I had to start healing, if not for myself, then for my grandparents, who'd taken me in without hesitation. 6 months passed. Most of our relatives had cut contact with my parents after learning what they'd done. Meanwhile, my parents seemed happier than ever, posting pictures of their cruise vacation on Facebook, looking tanned and carefree. Then yesterday, my mom called out of the blue. My hands trembled as I answered the phone. Hello? I said, barely able to get the word out. Sweetie? My mom's voice was softer than I remembered. How have you been? The question hung in the air like smoke. 6 months of silence, and that's what she opens with? What do you want, Mom? I managed to keep my voice steady. We've been thinking, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Your father and I, we want you to come home. Home. The word felt foreign in my mouth. Yes, we've realized we made a mistake. We miss you. We want to make things right, but something felt off. Her words were too perfect, too rehearsed. There was no emotion behind them, no real remorse. If you missed me so much, I said, my voice growing stronger, why did you wait 6 months to call? Why didn't you answer any of my calls when I was crying myself to sleep every night? Honey, we needed time to. To what? Go on cruises? Live your perfect life without me? That's not fair, she protested. We've changed. We want to be a family again. I laughed bitterly. No, Mom, you're lying. I don't know why, but you're lying. The truth came out 3 days later through my cousin Jack, who'd overheard a conversation between my paternal grandparents and their lawyer. They'd updated their will with a condition. My dad could only access his inheritance if I co-signed, and the money was split equally between us. Otherwise, everything would go to charity. The pieces clicked into place. The sudden call, the rehearsed speech, the desperate attempt to get me home. It was never about missing me. It was about the money. My grandmother insisted on confronting them. I sat in the living room, listening as she made the call on speakerphone. "How dare you?" My grandmother's voice shook with rage. "Using your own child like this? Mom, you don't understand," my mother started. "This inheritance would benefit everyone, including her." "Don't." My grandmother cut her off. "Don't you dare try to justify this. You abandoned your child, ignored her for months, and now you only want her back because of money? She's my daughter," my mother protested weakly. "I have a right to—" "No." My grandmother's voice turned ice cold. "You lost that right the moment you chose your marriage over your child, the moment you told her she was a failure. You're not my daughter anymore. I'm ashamed to have raised someone so inhuman." The silence that followed was deafening. "Mom, please," my mother whispered, but my grandmother had already ended the call. "I've blocked their numbers now. While our relationship may never be repaired, I'm learning to accept that. I have my grandparents, my Aunt Maria, and other relatives who genuinely care about me. My debate team coach has become a mentor, helping me look into college scholarships. I'm starting to dream about the future again." Last night, I sat on the porch swing with my grandfather, watching the sunset. He put his arm around me and said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. But you'll always have a home with us." For the first time in my life, I truly believe that. I'm finally surrounded by real love and support, by people who choose me every day. And you know what? Sometimes you think you're alone, but there are people always ready to give you a hand. That's more than enough.
My husband let his family crash our Bali honeymoon, so I left them and went to Hawaii by myself. I'm 26. When I married my husband, Bruce, I thought I was stepping into the future with the man I loved, someone I would grow old with and share my dreams with. But that idealistic vision of family I had, where love, respect, and loyalty reigned supreme, started to unravel the moment I became a part of his family. I had known Bruce for 5 years before we decided to get married. We met at a mutual friend's party during our mid-20s, both of us ambitious young professionals finding our way in the world. Our connection was instant. He had this charming smile that lit up his whole face, and we could talk for hours about everything and nothing. During our dating years, things were nearly perfect. We supported each other through career changes, celebrated promotions together, and helped each other through personal challenges. When Bruce lost his father to cancer 2 years into our relationship, I was there every step of the way, holding his hand through the grief. When I decided to switch companies for better opportunities, he encouraged me to take the leap. We were a team, or so I thought. Looking back, there were subtle signs I chose to ignore, like how Bruce would never make plans without checking with his mother first, or how family dinners at their house were mandatory every Sunday, no exceptions. I remember once when we had tickets to a concert that happened to fall on a Sunday. Bruce insisted we skip it because his mother Nancy had already planned the weekly family dinner. "Family comes first," he said, as if I wasn't meant to be his family too. The real troubles began when we got engaged. What should have been one of the happiest times of our lives quickly turned into a power struggle with Nancy at the helm. It started small. Suggestions about the wedding venue turned into demands, gentle advice about the guest list became non-negotiable additions. Nancy had opinions about everything, from the color of the tablecloths to the brand of champagne we should serve. I still remember the day we went dress shopping. I had invited my mother and best friend, planning for an intimate experience. But when we arrived at the bridal boutique, Nancy was already there with Bruce's 2 sisters. She'd somehow found out which store I'd booked and decided to surprise me. "We're family now," she said with that saccharine smile of hers. "You wouldn't want to leave us out of such an important moment, would you?" Throughout the appointment, Nancy dismissed every dress I liked as too simple or not befitting our family's status. She pushed me toward elaborate ball gowns that weren't my style at all. When I finally found a dress I loved, an elegant fitted gown with delicate lace details, Nancy actually teared up, but not in joy. "Oh, darling," she said loud enough for everyone to hear, "is that really the image you want to present? What will everyone think?" Bruce, when I told him about it later, just shrugged it off. "Mom knows about these things," he said. "She just wants what's best for us." It became his standard response to every boundary his mother crossed. The wedding planning only got worse from there. Nancy insisted on being copied on every email with vendors, often reaching out to them directly to make changes without consulting us. She added 30 people to our guest list, distant relatives and business associates I'd never met, and when I protested, she told Bruce I was being difficult and unwilling to embrace the family. Bruce's sisters were no better. They appointed themselves as unofficial wedding planners, showing up unannounced at our apartment with magazines and Pinterest boards, criticizing every decision we'd already made. They even went so far as to change our flower order behind my back because they decided my chosen colors wouldn't photograph well. The wedding day itself was barely recognizable as our own. Nancy had somehow convinced Bruce to change our outdoor garden ceremony to formal church wedding, complete with a string quartet and professional videographer we hadn't budgeted for. My simple, elegant decorations were replaced with elaborate floral arrangements that Nancy had ordered. Even our first dance song was changed last minute because Nancy thought our choice wasn't sophisticated enough. I tried to keep the peace, telling myself it was just one day, but then came the honeymoon disaster. We had spent months planning our dream trip to Bali. I'd researched the best beaches, found perfect romantic restaurants, even booked a couple's cooking class. Then, 3 days before we were set to leave, Nancy dropped her bomb. "We've decided to join you," she announced during Sunday dinner, beaming as if she'd just given us the greatest gift. The whole family hasn't had a vacation together in ages, and what better time than now? She'd already booked rooms at our resort for herself, her daughters, and their husbands. Bruce, instead of standing up for our private time, actually looked excited about the idea. That night I tried to reason with him. "This is supposed to be our honeymoon," I said, fighting back tears. "It's meant to be special just for us." "But isn't it better to share special moments with family?" he replied, genuinely confused by my distress. "Mom's already made all the arrangements. She's even planned some great group activities." The honeymoon was a nightmare. Every morning Nancy would knock on our door at 7 a.m. sharp with the day's itinerary. Our romantic dinners became family affairs, with Nancy holding court at the head of the table. Even our couple's massage was hijacked. Nancy convinced Bruce that we should all go to the spa together for family bonding. I reached my breaking point on our 4th day. We were supposed to have a sunset dinner cruise, just the two of us. I'd been looking forward to it for months, but when we arrived at the dock, there was the entire family dressed and ready to go. Nancy had called the company and changed our reservation to a group booking. That night, I packed my bags and booked a flight to Hawaii. Bruce was shocked when I told him I was leaving. "But we're having such a nice time," he said, genuinely perplexed. "Mom's put so much effort into making this special for everyone." In Hawaii, I spent a week alone, really thinking about my marriage and what it had become. Bruce called constantly at first, but the messages were less about my feelings and more about how I'd embarrassed his family by leaving. "Mom's really upset," he'd say. "How could you do this to us?" When I returned home, things only got worse. Nancy had convinced Bruce that I needed to make up for ruining the family honeymoon. Suddenly, we were expected at their house not just for Sunday dinners, but for breakfast on Saturdays, weekly family game nights, and any other event Nancy could dream up. She started showing up at our apartment unannounced, usually when Bruce was at work, to help me become a better wife. She'd reorganize our kitchen because this is how Bruce likes things, or redo our laundry because you're not folding his shirts correctly. When I tried to establish boundaries, she'd burst into tears and call Bruce, telling him I was pushing her away. The family's interference extended to every aspect of our lives. When we started house hunting, Nancy insisted on coming to every viewing, dismissing any home that wasn't in their neighborhood as unsuitable for a Bradley. When I got a promotion at work, instead of celebrating my success, she lectured me about how career women often struggle to maintain a happy home. Bruce's sisters were constant presences too, always ready to report back to their mother about any perceived slight. If I missed a family dinner because of work, I'd get passive-aggressive texts about prioritizing family. If I didn't immediately answer their group chat messages, they'd call Bruce to make sure I was okay because I was being unusually distant. The final straw came during that fateful family dinner where I tried to share my excitement about landing a major client at work. Before I could even finish speaking, Nancy interrupted with news about her latest project, a family business she was starting. She expected Bruce to quit his job and join her, and of course I was expected to do all the social media marketing for free, because family helps family. That night, looking at Bruce's excited face as he discussed leaving his job for his mother's project, I realized nothing would ever change. I wasn't his partner, I was just another member of his family's audience, expected to play whatever role they assigned me. The next day, I confronted Bruce. I laid everything out: how I felt smothered, disrespected, and alone in our marriage, how his family's constant presence had stripped away any chance for us to build our own life together, how I needed him to be my husband, not just his mother's son. His response told me everything I needed to know. "I don't understand why you're being so selfish," he said. "Family is everything. Mom just wants to be involved in our lives. Why can't you be more grateful for everything they do for us?" I left that night, going to stay with my friend. The weeks that followed were both heartbreaking and liberating. Bruce's family launched a full campaign to bring me to my senses. Nancy called my parents, telling them I was having a mental breakdown. My sister-in-law flooded my social media with posts about ungrateful daughters-in-law and the importance of family. But for the first time in years, I could breathe. I could make decisions without consulting Nancy's approval. I could work late without getting guilt-trip texts. I could be myself without trying to fit into the Bradley family mold. When I finally asked for a divorce, Bruce seemed genuinely shocked. "But we're family," he kept saying, as if that explained and excused everything. Maybe that was the problem all along in his world. Family meant sacrificing your individuality, your boundaries, and your dreams for the collective. But I couldn't live that way anymore. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. Nancy still tells anyone who will listen that I abandoned her son because I couldn't handle being part of a close-knit family. Bruce has already started dating someone new, a woman his mother introduced him to, of course. As for me, I'm rediscovering who I am without the Bradley family shadow looming over me. I moved to a new apartment, threw myself into my work, and started traveling on my own terms. Last month, I finally took that cooking class in Bali alone, and it was perfect. Sometimes I miss Bruce, or rather, the Bruce I thought I was marrying. But I don't miss walking on eggshells in my own home, or having every decision scrutinized by his family, or feeling like an outsider in my own marriage. I've learned that while family can be everything, it shouldn't cost you yourself. True family, whether born or chosen, supports your growth, respects your boundaries, and loves you for who you are, not who they want you to be. I'm still healing, still learning to trust my instincts again, but for the first time in years, I'm excited about my future. Because this time, I get to write my own story without anyone else trying to edit it.
My mom tried to kick me out for accusing spoiled sister of stealing my saving. But karma caught up with them. I'm 25, male. This story all began when I was 14, about a year before my parents' divorce. I had a younger sister who was always a princess in my mom's eyes. She had expensive tastes and a habit of spending her allowance like water. My sister was obsessed with makeup, mall food, video games, and anything she could get her hands on a Hot Topic. Meanwhile, I was out there hustling, mowing lawns, picking up cans for the deposit, and doing whatever odd jobs I could find around the neighborhood. Dad made me earn my allowance through housework and yard maintenance, while my sister barely lifted a finger unless he was there to watch her. Mom never made her do anything except occasionally clean her room. Over 2 years, I managed to save up about $2,000, which was no small feat for a teenager. I had my sights set on buying a scooter to get around town. But building up that nest egg was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it, and that hole was my sister. She had this uncanny ability to find every single hiding spot where I stashed my money, and she helped herself whenever she felt like it. I remember one particular confrontation that pretty much summed up how these things usually went down. I noticed $100 missing from my savings and confronted her about it. "Did you take my money again?" I asked, already knowing the answer from her nervous fidgeting. "What? No," she stuttered, her telltale sign of lying. "You're terrible at lying. There's $100 missing from my savings." Instead of owning up to it, she ran crying to Mom, playing the victim card she'd perfected over the years. "Mommy, he's picking on me." That's when Mom swooped in, fingers snapping in my face. "Shut up. Can't you see your sister's upset? She said she didn't do it, so she didn't do it. End of story. Keep pushing this, and you'll be grounded." But I wasn't backing down this time. "I know she did it. If you don't get the money back, I'm getting Dad involved." Mom's face tightened. There's no need for that. You don't have any proof she took your money. Actually, I do. I countered, pulling out my ledger. I keep track of every dollar. 3 days ago, I had this much. Now there's this much. $100 is missing. Sister already spent all her allowance this month, but you took her shopping yesterday. Where'd that money come from, Mom? Mom's response? She grounded me and threatened to get the belt if I didn't go to my room immediately. I knew when to pick my battles, so I went to my room and slammed the door. Then I pulled out my old Nokia brick phone and called Dad at work. When he didn't answer, I left a message explaining everything. He called back about an hour later, promising to handle it. Soon after, I heard Mom yelling at him over the landline in the kitchen. I couldn't catch everything, but I heard enough to know she was trying to justify her actions. It ended with her screaming, "Fine. If she really took the money, then you can pay it back because she already spent it." Then Mom burst into my room, face red with anger. "I can't believe you ratted me out. You little ingrate. After all I do for you, you couldn't just let a little money slide? So you admit she took it?" Mom's lip curled. "You know what? I don't care. Girls need more money than boys. You should just be giving it to her anyway. It wasn't even that much. It wasn't just a little money, and you know it. She stole $100. Even if it was only $1, I'd still want it back. You wouldn't want someone stealing from your purse. It's no different when she steals from me. She's guilty, and you know it. My baby doesn't have to do anything," Mom spat back. "She's a princess and deserves to be treated like one." I said, "That's not my problem. She can go be a princess away from me and my stuff." That's when Mom lost it. "That's it, you little shit. I'm gonna beat your ass." I stood up, meeting her eye to eye. At 14, I was already as tall as her and pretty strong from all the yard work. "Go ahead and try it. I won't let you, because I didn't do anything wrong." Mom froze for a moment, then let out a roar and tried to knock something off my dresser. She swung too low and hit the dresser itself instead, probably hurting her hand pretty bad. She stood there gnashing her teeth, then stormed out, hitting walls as she made her way to her wine fridge. Her usual solution when things didn't go her way. My sister watched this whole scene from her doorway, looking horrified before running back to her room and slamming the door. Her ace in the hole, Mom, was starting to fail her, and she knew it. A few hours later, Dad came home and marched my sister into my room. He'd made her admit to stealing from me and told me I wasn't grounded anymore. My sister couldn't even look at me while apologizing, and Dad had to keep telling her to speak up until she was practically yelling it. Then he gave me $100 to replace what she'd stolen and told her she was grounded for a week, with the money coming out of her allowance. This set off another round of tears as she ran to her room, calling Dad awful names. Meanwhile, Mom sat out back, drinking wine and pretending none of this was happening. She never apologized to me, and sometimes acted like the whole thing never happened. Of course, my sister still got her next allowance anyway. Mom made sure of that. A few days later, on Dad's day off, we went to buy a combination safe for my money and valuables. We kept it secret from Mom and my sister. I remember the code 4962, and I finally felt like my money was secure. That feeling lasted about a few weeks until I came home from mowing lawns to find my room ransacked. I called Mom to tell her what my sister had done. "My baby didn't do this," she insisted. "Well, did you?" "No." "Well, it could only have been one of you. The room was clean when I left, and no one else was here." Mom, caught by logic, snapped, "Fine. But if she did do it, so what? You had it coming by not being nicer to her anyway." I called Dad again and left a message, then went to confront my sister. Before she could deny anything, I told her she couldn't get to my money anymore because it was locked in a safe. This triggered an epic tantrum, and of course, Mom came running to defend her precious princess. I just repeated that she couldn't get at my money anymore and went to clean up my room, feeling pretty smug about the whole thing. But the next day, I came home to find my room destroyed again, and this time, my window was broken. My sister had thrown the safe through it when she couldn't get it open. I called Dad immediately. And when both parents got home from work, my sister proudly admitted what she'd done. Mom tried to defend her, saying I shouldn't have gotten the safe in the first place, but Dad finally snapped. He pointed out that he'd gotten it from me because he was sick of my sister stealing and having to reimburse me since Mom never would. We had to replace the whole window, and Dad got me a lock for my door and a combination key lockbox. My sister got grounded for a month, though Mom let her do whatever she wanted when Dad wasn't home. I didn't bother reporting this. I knew it would just make both of them more determined to make my life miserable. After her grounding ended, my sister resorted to begging me for money whenever she blew through her allowance. I drew up an IOU just to see if she'd sign it in front of Dad. She tore it up and ran crying to Mom about how mean I was being. Mom tried to force me to give her money, but I just reminded her what Dad would do. That's when Mom tried to get me sent to military school, but Dad shut that down too. Looking back, I'm not sure why Dad never helped me set up a proper bank account. I guess keeping cash was just how we did things back then. The story doesn't end there, though. Mom's attempt to send me to military school backfired spectacularly. She actually tried to forge Dad's signature on the application papers, but Dad's signature was too complex for her to copy convincingly. When I found the papers and showed Dad, he kept them as evidence. This came in handy later when their marriage fell apart after Mom's affair with an old high school boyfriend came to light. Dad used those forged documents, along with evidence she'd forged his signature on credit card applications, to speed up the divorce proceedings. Mom got to keep the house since Dad didn't want it, but she only got minimal alimony and child support from my sister, who of course chose to stay with her. On my last day in that house, my sister couldn't resist one final jab. Mommy says I'm a princess and the more deserving sibling. That's why you're leaving. I just shook my head and told her to think whatever she wanted. I didn't care anymore. Walking out that door, I finally felt free. My sister and I barely spoke during her weekly visits to Dad's house, and eventually, we stopped talking altogether. I never went back to Mom's house. She'd turned my old room into a home office anyway. Looking back now, I realize this whole experience taught me some valuable lessons about standing up for myself, the importance of documentation, and how money can reveal people's true colors. It wasn't just about the stolen money or the broken window. It was about respect, fairness, and learning to set boundaries, even with family. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up is realizing that the people who should protect you might be the ones you need protection from. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.
My mom threw me out to focus on her new kids. Now, I'm successful. She wants me to pay for siblings' college. I'm 33 now, working in upper management at a company I've been with since graduation, but the path here wasn't easy. Some days, I still catch myself wondering how things might have been different if my mother had made different choices. But let me start from the beginning. My mom had me when she was 20. My biological father wasn't in the picture. They'd only been together briefly, and when she got pregnant, she gave him the choice to walk away. He took it without hesitation. Rather than pursue child support through a bitter legal battle, my mom chose to go it alone, supported by my grandparents who helped her finish her education and start her career. Looking back, I wonder if her resentment toward my father somehow transferred to me, though it would take years to surface. Those early years were just the two of us, living in a small apartment above my grandparents' garage. My mom worked hard, taking extra shifts at her job while studying for her degree in web development. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents who doted on me as their first grandchild. Despite our modest circumstances, I remember being happy. My mom would read to me every night before bed, and weekends were filled with trips to the park or local library. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying her best. Everything changed when I was 8, and she met Harry at work. He was different from the other men she'd dated, more stable, more serious about building a future together. They dated for 3 years before getting married, and while Harry and I were never particularly close, we got along well enough. He treated me with a kind of distant politeness, like a houseguest who had stayed too long but was too well-mannered to say anything about it. The first signs of trouble appeared gradually. My mom started spending less time with me, focused entirely on building her new life with Harry. Family dinners became less frequent, and when we did eat together, the conversation revolved around their work or their plans for the future. I tried harder to get their attention, getting perfect grades, taking on extra chores, anything to show I could be valuable to their new family unit. Looking back, I realize how desperate those attempts must have seemed. 4 years into their marriage, my mom got pregnant with twins. Everyone was thrilled, including me at first. I imagined being a big brother, helping with the babies, finally having siblings to play with and protect. I even started babysitting for neighbors to gain experience. But as my mom's pregnancy progressed, her attitude toward me grew increasingly cold and distant. The twins' arrival marked the beginning of the end of my place in that family, though I was too young to see it then. I was 16 when my mom and Harry sat me down for what they called a serious chat. "Sweetie," my mom started, not quite meeting my eyes, "Harry and I need to discuss something important with you." Harry cleared his throat. "With the twins now, our expenses have increased significantly. We need to think about their future." "What do you mean?" I asked, though somehow I already knew where this was heading. "We can't support everyone in the house anymore," my mom said softly. "The twins, they deserve more resources right now. They're just babies." Those words still echo in my head sometimes. Deserve more. As if love and support were finite resources that had to be rationed. I can still see my mom's face, the way she looked everywhere but at me, as she essentially told me I was worth less than her new family. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 successful web developers making good money suddenly couldn't support a teenager and 2 infants. Our house was spacious, their cars were new, and Harry had just finished renovating his home office. But it wasn't about money. It was about wanting me gone, and they knew I had enough pride to take the hint. I packed my bags that same day, refusing to let them see me cry as I walked to my grandparents' house. My grandparents were furious with my mom but maintained contact to stay in their grandchildren's lives. I understood that twins shouldn't suffer for their parents' choices. Being older, my grandparents couldn't support me financially, so at 16, I started working part-time at a local coffee shop while finishing high school. My grades suffered a bit, but I managed to maintain a decent enough GPA to get into college. When college acceptance letters started arriving, I faced another harsh reality. My mom and Harry refused to help with financial aid applications or cosign student loans, again, citing their need to save resources for the twins. It was my uncle who finally stepped in, becoming my loan cosigner with the simple request that I never default. His faith in me became a driving force in my determination to succeed. Throughout college, I worked continuously to stay afloat and start paying off my loans early. I took summer classes to graduate faster, picked up extra shifts at the campus bookstore, and even started a small side business doing web design for local businesses. The irony of following in my mother's professional footsteps wasn't lost on me, but I was good at it, and it paid well. My mom didn't attend my graduation. In fact, after I left for college, we barely had any contact at all. I'd see glimpses of her life through social media, family vacations, the twins' school achievements, perfectly staged holiday photos that showed no trace of her first child. Eventually, I blocked her on everything and focused on building my own life. It was hard. Those first few years out of college were a constant struggle to cover rent, utilities, and loan payments on an entry-level salary, but I made it work. My early career was marked by long hours and relentless determination. I took every training opportunity, volunteered for difficult projects, and slowly built a reputation as someone who could be counted on to deliver results. Years passed, and I climbed the corporate ladder through sheer persistence and hard work. Recently, I received a major promotion, one of the youngest people in the company to reach this level of management. I kept the promotion relatively quiet, only telling a few close friends and my uncle, who'd helped me get through college. Unfortunately, he mentioned it to my mom at a family gathering, suggesting she reach out to congratulate me. He meant well, but he had no idea of the chaos his well-intentioned comment would unleash. Instead of congratulations, she and Harry showed up at my door demanding money. The years hadn't been kind to them. Their business venture had failed, leaving them deep in debt, and with the twins approaching college age, they needed financial help. "We heard about your promotion," my mother said, her voice dripping with practiced sweetness. "You must be doing very well for yourself now." "What do you want?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "The twins are getting ready for college," Harry jumped in. "And with our business situation, well, we thought maybe you'd want to help your siblings." My mother nodded eagerly. "It would be a chance to make things right between us, to show you care about your family." The audacity was stunning. They tried to frame it as me making up for cutting them out of my life, as if I owed them something after they'd kicked me out and refused to help with my own education. "Make things right?" I laughed bitterly. "Like you made things right when I needed help with college." "That was different," my mother protested. "We had young children then. And I was what? Just an inconvenience?" When they started talking about family obligation and responsibility, I couldn't hold back my bitter laughter. I reminded them of their words about saving resources for the kids who deserved it more, and suggested they use those saved resources for the twins' education. The look of shock on their faces would have been comical if it wasn't so infuriating. When I asked them to leave, they became defensive, claiming I'd been overenthusiastic and annoying as a teenager. They tried to guilt me about my mom's sacrifices raising me alone, as if caring for your child is some extraordinary favor, rather than basic parental responsibility. The argument escalated until I threatened to call the police, finally getting them to leave. But it wasn't over. My mom started sending daily emails listing everything she'd done for me as a child. Every doctor's appointment, every school supply purchased, every sacrifice made. When I blocked one email address, she'd create another. Her desperation seemed to grow with each passing day. Then she showed up at my workplace, thankfully on the day I was out sick. My colleagues were uncomfortable with her aggressive behavior, and security had to escort her out. The incident was embarrassing, but it also strengthened my resolve to maintain firm boundaries. The final straw came when she ambushed me outside my house. I had my phone in hand, ready to call the police, when I saw her. "You ungrateful little brat," she screamed, lunging at me. "After everything I've done for you." "Stay back," I warned, dialing 911. "I mean it, Mom. Don't you dare call the police on your own mother." She made a grab for my phone. "I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you." "You abandoned me," I shouted back, trying to keep her at bay. "You threw me away like I was nothing." It was like watching a stranger wearing my mother's face. She was screaming about ingratitude and family loyalty while trying to grab my phone. Through the chaos, I heard my neighbor yelling, "I'm calling the police. Leave him alone." Other neighbors emerged from their houses, witnesses to this surreal scene of a mother attacking her adult child. Someone pulled her away from me as sirens wailed in the distance. I pressed charges, and now I'm in the process of getting a restraining order. Harry has taken the twins to stay with his parents, clearly recognizing that my mother's behavior has become dangerous and unstable. Even my grandparents, who stood by her through everything else, have finally distanced themselves after witnessing her recent actions. They told me they feel guilty for not doing more when I was younger, but I don't blame them. They did what they could, providing a safe haven when I needed it most. Looking back, I realize I spent years hoping my mom would come to her senses and try to make things right. Every birthday, every holiday, every major life event, there was a small part of me waiting for her to reach out with genuine remorse and a desire to rebuild our relationship. But her recent actions have shown me who she truly is. Someone who only saw me as useful when she needed something from me. I'm done feeling guilty about maintaining boundaries with someone who discarded me the moment I became inconvenient. I'm looking to move to a bigger house now that I can afford it. And for the first time in my life, I feel truly at peace with my decision to keep my mother out of my life. The scared 16-year-old who packed his bags and walked away from the only home he'd known has grown into a strong, successful man who won't be manipulated or guilted into sacrificing his own well-being. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up is accepting that the parent you needed isn't the parent you got. But that acceptance can also be freeing. I've built a life I'm proud of, surrounded myself with people who genuinely care about me, and learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about who stands by you when things get tough. As for my mother, I hope she gets the help she clearly needs. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to walk away and let them face the consequences of their own choices.
My parents cut me off since I didn't meet their expectations. Now they're begging for money to help my sister. I'm 29 now, and my parents and I barely speak. Actually, they barely spoke to me at all for the past 7 years. The split happened right after I told them I wasn't going into a field they approved of. It wasn't because I was lazy or aimless, or whatever they like to say. It was because I just didn't care about the same things they did. To them, the only way to be someone was to go to an Ivy League, pick a big-name career, and make a lot of money doing something that would impress their friends. But that wasn't me. I wanted to be a graphic designer. I liked creating things, and I didn't care if that made me seem like a disappointment or a failure. That's what I told them when I was 21. And that's when they cut me off. No more financial support, no visits, no calls. I was basically erased from the family for not following their rules. My sister, Sue, was the opposite. She was the poster child for everything my parents wanted. She got into an Ivy League law program, graduated with top honors, landed a big job at a top firm, and eventually married a guy just as wealthy and ambitious as her. They had a fancy apartment in the city, took luxury vacations, and always had the newest car. Every time she hit a milestone, my parents would make sure everyone knew. Every holiday gathering was about Sue and her achievements. Me? I wasn't even invited to most of them. Meanwhile, I was living a completely different life. After college, I worked a few different gigs, building up experience and trying to scrape together enough for rent and food. I eventually went freelance, took on bigger clients, and started making a name for myself, albeit quietly. I wasn't rich, but I was doing fine, and I was doing it on my own. It wasn't a life of status and wealth, but it was mine, and I was proud of that. For years, I'd reach out to my family here and there, just a text or a call, to say hi or let them know I was doing okay. They'd never respond. I wasn't mad, but it felt like I was a ghost. I stopped trying after a while. If they weren't going to accept me for who I was, I didn't see a point in begging for scraps of attention. Fast forward to earlier this year. Out of nowhere, my mom called me. It was almost shocking to see her name pop up on my phone. For a second, I thought maybe something happened to my dad, but when I picked up, she didn't sound upset. Instead, she was awkwardly cheerful, asking me how I'd been, saying it had been a long time. I didn't really know what to say, so I just listened while she filled me in on family updates that I had no context for. After 5 minutes of small talk, she finally got to the point. Turns out Sue's husband had been involved in some huge financial scandal. Something about a Ponzi scheme or investor fraud. I didn't get the full details because my mom sort of glossed over it. What mattered to her was that Sue's life had completely fallen apart. Her husband's assets were seized. They lost their apartment. And now she was unemployed with nothing but debt and bad press hanging over her head. It was the kind of scandal that had ripped her life out from under her. And now they were calling me because they wanted me to help her get back on her feet. My mom explained that Sue was in a dark place, struggling to move forward, and she thought it would be nice if I could let Sue stay with me for a while until she sorted things out. She just needs a bit of support right now, my mom said, as if the past 7 years hadn't happened. At first, I told her I needed time to think about it, which wasn't the answer she wanted. She got defensive, saying things like family is supposed to help family, and this isn't just about you. I pointed out that family hadn't exactly been their priority when I was struggling, and that maybe they should ask her friends for help instead. My mom didn't like that. She got all tight-lipped, said she was disappointed I couldn't put aside petty grudges, and hung up. But it didn't end there. 2 days later, my dad called, and he went a step further, suggesting that maybe I could offer Sue a job in my field. Now, I'm a freelance designer. I'm not running some big firm that's hiring staff. He made it sound like I owed it to Sue to use my connections to help her rebuild her life. This was all news to me, since they'd never acknowledged that I had any connections until now. I said as calmly as I could that Sue was not my responsibility. My dad didn't like that one bit. He kept saying that Sue was family, that she'd helped me out so much over the years. I pointed out that she'd never actually done anything for me. And in fact, she'd ignored my attempts to stay in touch after they'd all cut me off. He brushed it off like it was beside the point and started telling me that I was being ungrateful. Ungrateful? To the family who'd all but disowned me for not living up to their standards. A week later, they called me again. This time, they wanted something even more absurd. My mom suggested that I temporarily let them manage my finances because it would streamline things. She was talking about it like I was a child, and she wanted me to give them access to my bank account so they could redistribute some of my income to help Sue until she got back on her feet. It'll be more efficient, she said, like she was trying to explain simple math to me. I hung up. I didn't respond to the dozen texts that followed. After everything, they thought they could just swoop back in, dictate how I spent my money, and expect me to fund my sister's recovery. Then came the next twist. Out of nowhere, I started getting texts from family friends and mutual acquaintances saying my parents had reached out to them, worried about my sudden change in behavior. They implied I was going through some sort of crisis, and that I'd pushed away my family. One of my friends even forwarded me a message where my mom had said she was deeply concerned about the choices I was making. The tone was as if I'd joined a cult or was spiraling out of control. It was such a bizarre, twisted version of reality. All those years of silence. And now they were acting like they were some concerned, loving family that had no idea why their son had turned away from them. After that, I finally decided to cut off contact. I didn't need this drama, and I wasn't about to let them rewrite history. But then Sue herself reached out. She sent me a long, carefully worded email apologizing for everything, saying she'd had no idea I felt this way, that she thought we were still on good terms. She mentioned that she never realized how the distance between us had affected me, like it had all been some misunderstanding. Then she asked if she could stay with me for a little while. I just need a place to catch my breath, she wrote. She made it sound simple, like we could just pick up where we left off, like she hadn't ignored my existence for years. It was surreal. I remembered how, for years, I've been the one reaching out, trying to keep some sort of connection. I'd invited her to my graduation, texted her updates about my life, and tried to keep her in the loop. She'd never once replied. And now, suddenly, I was supposed to open my door and give her a place to catch her breath. I wrote back, saying that while I was sorry for what she was going through, I didn't think it was a good idea. I didn't see the point in pretending we were close, and I wasn't in a position to be her safety net. After that, things got quiet. I figured my parents had finally taken the hint, and I felt a huge weight lift off me. But then, just a week later, they pulled one final stunt. I got an invitation to what was supposedly a family dinner. It was my dad's idea, a blast attempt to fix things. For whatever reason, I decided to go. I guess a small part of me thought, maybe this time would be different. It wasn't. The second I walked in, I realized it wasn't a dinner. It was an ambush. The entire family was there, and they'd all decided it was time to set me straight. My dad led the charge, saying I'd let them down, and that it was time to stop holding grudges. They made me sound like some rebellious teenager who needed to be disciplined. When I tried to explain my side, they all acted like they had no idea what I was talking about. They brushed off every point I made. The years of silence, the fact that they cut me off, the way they'd ignored every milestone in my life. They were rewriting history right in front of me. Sue sat there, looking down at her hands, occasionally glancing up but never saying a word. She had this expression like she was somehow the victim in all this. My mom was on the verge of tears, talking about how heartbroken she was that the family had drifted apart, saying things like, "This isn't what I wanted for us." Then came the kicker. My dad, in his usual calm and authoritative voice, said, "You need to grow up and realize that family means sacrifices." He actually said, "You're not living in the real world if you think you can ignore us and go on with your life." According to him, this whole situation was because I was selfish and living in my own little bubble. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd spent years scraping by, working hard for every dollar, while they sat back and acted like I didn't exist. And now they wanted me to put all of that aside and act like we were one big, happy family? At that point, I'd had enough. I got up, looked right at Sue, and said, "Where were you when I was struggling? When I couldn't even afford to keep the lights on some months? When I reached out to you, just hoping for a text back? Where were you?" She looked away, like she didn't want to hear it. Then I turned to my parents. I told them that family might mean sacrifices, but it's a two-way street. I told them that I'd been the only one trying for years to keep us together, and they'd push me away at every turn. I reminded them that they were the ones who cut me off when I didn't fit their mold, that they chose Sue over me every single time, and that they'd ignored every accomplishment I'd made because it didn't live up to their standards. My mom started crying, saying, "We just wanted what was best for you." My dad shook his head and said, "You're making this about you." And Sue finally spoke up, saying, "Can't we just move forward?" As if none of it mattered. I realized right then and there that they weren't going to change. They didn't actually care about me. They cared about what I could do for them. They wanted me back in the family fold, but only if it meant I'd play the part they needed me to play. The backup plan, the fixer, the one they could turn to now that their golden child was in trouble. I told them I was done. For real this time. I said that family is supposed to be there for you through thick and thin, not just when it's convenient. I said that they'd made their choices a long time ago, and now I was making mine. I told Sue that while I was sorry for what she was going through, it wasn't my responsibility to fix her life. And then I walked out. I went home that night and blocked their numbers. I unfollowed them on every social media platform and told the friends who'd been there for me what had happened. They were all supportive, reminding me that I didn't know my family anything after the way they treated me. It's been a few months since that night, and I can honestly say I feel lighter. Cutting ties with them was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also the most freeing. I still think about them sometimes, especially around holidays, or when I see other people with their families. But I know that I did everything I could to make things right, and I refuse to be anyone's backup plan. Now I'm living life on my own terms. I'm building a career surrounded by people who actually care about me for who I am, not for what I can do for them. And while part of me will always wish things had been different with my family, I know I made the right choice. I don't know if they'll ever reach out again, and honestly, I don't care. I'm finally done trying to be someone they can accept, and I'm done sacrificing my own happiness to play a part in their lives. This time, I'm putting myself first, and it feels good. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.
My infertile girlfriend got pregnant with my best friend's baby and wanted I pay child support, but I left them instead. I'm 29, and until recently I thought I had it all figured out. A stable job, a girlfriend I loved, and a best friend I'd known since childhood. But life has a way of showing you how wrong you can be about the people closest to you. Larry, I'll call him best friend, and I were inseparable growing up. Picture two kids riding bikes down every dirt road in town, sharing dreams about starting businesses together, getting into the same kind of trouble. Through every scraped knee, failed test, and broken heart, we were there for each other. We weren't just friends, we were brothers in everything but blood. Our friendship survived all the typical teenage drama, girlfriends who came and went, family problems, academic struggles. When my parents went through a rough patch during my junior year, Larry's house became my sanctuary. When his dad lost his job, my family made sure he always had a place at our dinner table. That's the kind of friendship we had, or at least, that's what I thought we had. After high school, we went our separate ways for a while. I focused on building a career, while Larry bounced between jobs, never quite finding his footing. But when we both ended up back in our hometown, it felt like destiny. I had a decent job in finance and a modest apartment, while he worked various odd jobs, always talking about his next big break. We fell back into our old rhythms, regular drinks at the local bar, sharing stories about our time apart, watching games together on weekends. Looking back, I should have noticed how often he'd forget his wallet or need to borrow money until payday. But when you've known someone your whole life, you tend to overlook the small things. Then I met my girlfriend, Nicole, at a house party through mutual friends about 2 years ago. She had this magnetic quality about her, charismatic, funny, with a gentle spirit that drew people in. She actually listened when I spoke, asking thoughtful questions instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. Our relationship progressed naturally and quickly. We started with walks around the neighborhood, casual dinners at local spots, quiet movie nights at my place. She fit seamlessly into my life, getting along with my friends and family. Before long, we were spending most of our time together, though we kept our separate apartments. Larry seemed supportive, often joining us for group activities or dinner. Everything seemed perfect, except for one detail that would later prove crucial. She claimed she was infertile. She brought it up one evening while we were discussing future plans, mentioning it so casually that it seemed impossible to doubt. According to her, doctors had diagnosed her with a hormonal condition that made conception nearly impossible. She spoke about it with such conviction, even sharing stories about doctor visits and treatments she'd supposedly tried. I never questioned it. Why would anyone lie about something so serious? She used this medical condition in subtle ways, suggesting we didn't need to be as careful with protection, talking about how she'd made peace with never having biological children. Looking back, I should have seen how she used this to manipulate situations, but love has a way of blinding you to red flags. The first bomb dropped when Nicole announced she was pregnant. Given everything she'd said about being infertile, my initial reaction was a mix of confusion, disbelief, and even a touch of joy. She brushed off my questions with vague statements about medical miracles and doctors being wrong. For a brief moment, I actually felt happy. I'd always wanted kids, though not quite like this. But then the red flags started waving. Her behavior changed subtly. She became more secretive with her phone, started having girls' nights that she couldn't quite explain, and seemed to be texting constantly. Larry started acting weird too, showing up at odd times when I wasn't around, making excuses to see Nicole alone to plan a surprise for me. I ignored my gut feelings, telling myself I was being paranoid. The first red flags appeared right after the baby was born. While I was still processing the joy and shock of becoming a father despite Nicole's claimed infertility, I noticed some unsettling details. The baby's blood type didn't match either of ours, something I discovered while filling out medical forms at the hospital. When I mentioned this to Nicole, she became defensive and tried to change the subject, claiming she was too tired to discuss medical details. Then came the birth certificate signing. Nicole was unusually insistent that I sign it immediately, pressuring me with statements like, "It needs to be done right away, and the hospital needs it now." In my emotional state, watching her with our supposed miracle baby, I signed without questioning further. It's a decision that would come back to haunt me. Over the next 3 weeks, more inconsistencies emerged. I overheard Nicole on the phone with someone, discussing how he doesn't suspect anything, and we just need to keep this quiet for now. I also found suspicious text messages on her phone when she asked me to check a grocery list, messages to Larry discussing their plan, and how they needed to stick to the story. The final piece clicked when I discovered an unsent draft email on our shared computer. Nicole had apparently started writing to Larry about their affair, and the baby, then forgotten to delete it. Instead of confronting them immediately, I contacted my uncle who specialized in family law. He explained that while signing the birth certificate typically establishes legal paternity, there were options to contest it if fraud could be proven, especially this early after the birth. The key was gathering evidence before confronting them. Working with a lawyer, I learned I had a limited window to contest paternity after discovering the deception. We filed an emergency petition to contest paternity and gathered evidence, the blood type discrepancy, their text messages, emails. Only after securing legal protection did I confront Nicole. I laid out everything I'd discovered, the blood type issue, the messages, the draft email. Her face went pale as she realized I'd figured it out on my own. That's when she broke down and admitted the truth, trying to spin it as a one-time mistake. She tried to downplay it as a drunken mistake with Larry. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Here I was, believing I was having a miracle baby with someone who couldn't get pregnant, only to find out she'd been sleeping with my best friend. When I demanded a paternity test, her reluctance spoke volumes. She claimed it would hurt her emotionally to confirm the father's identity. Larry offered weak apologies that felt more like afterthoughts than genuine remorse. "Dude, I never meant for this to happen," he'd say, as if that somehow made it better. And here's where it got really twisted. They had the audacity to suggest I should provide financial support even if the baby turned out to be his. Their reasoning: I was more financially stable than Larry was. They tried to frame it as me being the bigger person and doing what's best for the baby. The manipulation was so blatant it was almost laughable. Through investigation and some accidentally discovered text messages on Nicole's old phone, I learned something that made my blood boil. They had actually planned this. Larry, struggling with mounting debts from failed business ventures and a gambling problem I never knew about, had seen an opportunity. He knew I was doing well financially, and together with Nicole, they'd concocted this scheme to secure ongoing financial support, regardless of who the father was. I found messages between them discussing how they could share the child support, with Larry potentially getting a cut of whatever I would provide. They had calculated everything, from timing the pregnancy announcement to manipulating mutual friends for support. They even discussed ways to ensure I'd sign the birth certificate before raising any doubts about paternity. The level of premeditation was staggering. I also discovered that Larry had been in deeper financial trouble than anyone knew. He had gambling debts to some dangerous people, failed business ventures that he'd hidden from everyone, and a mountain of unpaid loans. He saw my stable job and growing savings as his ticket out of the mess he'd created. The pregnancy wasn't just about child support. It was his desperate attempt at a bailout. We moved quickly, filing for an immediate court order for a paternity test, along with a cease and desist letter regarding any attempts to name me as the father on official documents. The letter specifically cited their text messages planning to exploit child support laws for financial gain. Their reaction was telling. Larry immediately backed off, while Nicole became even more aggressive in her demands. During the legal proceedings, more details about their scheme emerged. They had been planning this for months, with Larry coaching Nicole on how to manipulate me emotionally. They had even discussed ways to pressure me into marriage before the baby was born, believing it would strengthen their claim on my finances. The depth of their betrayal seemed bottomless. My attorney was thorough, documenting every manipulation attempt, every lie, every financial discussion between them. She built a case that not only protected me from their immediate schemes, but also created a record in case they tried anything similar in the future. We filed motions to ensure I couldn't be listed as the father without my consent and documented Nicole's lies about infertility as evidence of her pattern of deception. The day we got the paternity test results confirming I wasn't the father, I felt an overwhelming mix of relief and anger. The relief was immediate. I wouldn't be legally tied to their manipulation for the next 18 years. But the anger, that took longer to process. These were people I had trusted completely, who had calculated and planned to exploit that trust for financial gain. But my attorney advised me to keep documenting everything, and she was right. They made one last desperate attempt to pressure me, this time through Nicole's family. Her father, unaware of the full story, tried to guilt me into doing the right thing. They had fed him a sanitized version of events, painting me as the villain who'd abandoned his pregnant girlfriend. That's when I decided to go nuclear with the truth. In a certified letter drafted by my attorney, we laid out everything: the proof of their affair, their documented plans to exploit child support, Larry's financial motivations, and Nicole's lies about infertility. We included screenshots of their text messages discussing how to manipulate me, witness statements from people who'd seen them together, and bank records showing suspicious transfers between their accounts. The aftermath was intense but satisfying. Larry, faced with exposure of his financial schemes and the possibility of his gambling debts becoming public knowledge, left town practically overnight. Nicole's family, finally seeing the full picture, stopped their pressure campaign. Her father actually called to apologize, saying he had no idea about the extent of their deception. Mutual friends who'd been fed lies about me, abandoning them, came forward to apologize after learning the truth. Some shared additional information about times they'd seen Larry and Nicole together, but hadn't known how to tell me. Others admitted they'd suspected something was wrong but hadn't wanted to get involved. The experience changed how I approach relationships and trust. I'm more cautious now, but not cynical. I've learned to verify important claims and trust my instincts when something feels off. Most importantly, I've learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you the bad guy, even when others try to paint you as one. Today, I'm rebuilding my life with a clearer understanding of boundaries and trust. I've strengthened relationships with friends who stood by me and developed a healthy skepticism about people's motives. I've focused on my career, hit the gym regularly, and started building genuine relationships based on honesty rather than manipulation. I still hear updates about them occasionally through mutual friends. Larry is struggling with multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet and dodge his creditors. Nicole moved in with relatives, still dealing with the pregnancy and the fallout of her lies. But their problems are no longer mine. I've moved forward, focusing on building a better life for myself. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever forgive them. Maybe someday, but for now, I'm content knowing I stood up for myself and exposed their schemes. Their betrayal showed me that loyalty should be earned, not exploited, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no to people who try to take advantage of your kindness. Looking ahead, I'm grateful for the lessons learned, though I wish they hadn't come at such a high emotional cost. I'm sharing this story not just as a cautionary tale, but as proof that you can overcome betrayal and manipulation if you're willing to stand your ground and fight for what's right. They tried to exploit my loyalty and financial stability, but in the end, their scheme backfired completely. Now they have to live with the consequences of their actions, while I can hold my head high knowing I didn't let them manipulate me into a lifetime of financial and emotional obligation that wasn't mine to bear. The whole experience has made me stronger, wiser, and more discerning about who I let into my life. I've learned that true friendship and love don't come with schemes and manipulation. They come with honesty, respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. That's how I protected myself from a fraudulent child support scheme and made them regret trying to exploit my trust. Life goes on, and I'm building a better future, one where I can spot red flags before they become life-altering problems, and where I'm surrounded by people who value honesty as much as I do.
My parents blamed me for theft for years, destroying my trust. Now, the real culprit's arrest left them begging for forgiveness. I'm 23 now, but the events that shaped me into who I am today began when I was just 15. Middle child, stuck between an older sister, 25, and a younger brother, 19. My parents, 54 and 53, always made a big deal out of fairness, or so I thought. What happened in my teenage years would show me just how fragile that illusion really was. It all started shortly after my 15th birthday. My dad had this collection: pocket knives, baseball cards, autographed baseballs. He'd been collecting them for years, and some of those items were worth a fair bit. Not thousands of dollars or anything, but enough to matter. Suddenly, things started disappearing from his room, and somehow, they always ended up in mine. At first, I was confused. Why would I take them? But my parents didn't bother asking me that question. They assumed the answer and came down on me hard. Punishments piled up, each one worse than the last. Vacations? Gone. A 17th birthday celebration? Didn't happen. A driver's license at 16? Forget it. Even getting a car was out of the question. My parents made sure every privilege was stripped away, one by one. My protests of innocence fell on deaf ears. I begged, pleaded, cried. It didn't matter. My parents were convinced I was a thief, and soon the rest of my family followed suit. My grandparents, uncles, aunts, they all looked at me like I was some kind of criminal in the making. "You'll end up on the news one day," my dad once said. A robbery suspect or worse. I began to wonder if they were right. What if I was stealing without realizing it? Maybe I had some kind of mental issue. Sleepwalking? Memory lapses? I didn't know what to think anymore. I just knew that I was losing everything. My family's trust, my childhood, my sense of self. The breaking point came when I turned 18. I'd had enough. I moved out and cut off contact, save for the occasional call or holiday card. I couldn't bear to face them. The hurt, the mistrust, it was too much. For 5 years, I lived my life independently, far from the family that had cast me out. Then, earlier this week, I got a call from my mom. At first, I thought it was just one of those obligatory "how are you doing?" calls. But her tone was different, hesitant, almost apologetic. She told me they'd started noticing things disappearing again. Only this time, I wasn't there to blame. My dad, in a rare stroke of brilliance, set up cameras in the hallway. The culprit? My younger brother. He was caught red-handed, sneaking into Dad's room and stashing the stolen items in my sister's old bedroom. My mom tried to apologize. She said she and Dad felt awful for not believing me all those years ago. She even invited me to her upcoming birthday dinner, hoping we could catch up and mend fences. For a moment, I considered it. Then I asked her about my brother's punishment. Her answer floored me. Your dad took his phone away for a week, she said, and no video games for a month. That was it. No missed birthdays, no canceled vacations, no revoked privileges like I had endured. Just a slap on the wrist. My anger bubbled over. I couldn't believe it. For years, I was branded a thief, humiliated, and punished for crimes I didn't commit. Meanwhile, the real thief gets a timeout and a month without his Xbox? I let loose. Are you kidding me? I shouted. You let me miss out on everything. Birthdays, vacations, driving, over lies, and all he gets is no phone? Go fuck yourselves. I hung up and blocked her number. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of justice, even if it was laced with bitterness. Am I the asshole for refusing to forgive them? Maybe. But forgiveness isn't automatic. It's earned, and right now, I don't see how they've earned it. They tore me down for years, and now that the truth is out, they think a simple sorry is enough? It's not. For now, I've decided to stay away. Maybe one day, I'll be ready to face them again. But not today. Not until they understand the damage they've done and make a real effort to fix it. Until then, I'm standing my ground. I've had enough of being the scapegoat. It's time to put myself first. After the truth came out, my sister, T, reached out to apologize. She's the one family member I've consistently trusted since moving out, and her ability to admit when she's wrong is something I admire deeply. No hard feelings toward her at all. According to T, my mom had what she called an overnight epiphany. Mom kicked Jay out of the house after he finally confessed to stealing for years. He was sent to live with my grandparents, where he'd have to get a job, pay rent, and cover his tuition. Apparently, my dad resisted at first, but Mom made him see the damage Jay had done to the family. My dad later called me, full of apologies, saying I didn't have to see them again if I didn't want to, but that they hoped to make amends. He even offered to cover my student loans and throw in an extra $5,000. I told him I'd consider it, but needed time. I appreciated the apology, but wasn't ready to forgive. Meanwhile, T kept me updated. My parents, unbeknownst to me, were considering selling possessions and taking extra shifts at work to surprise me with a brand new car. It felt like a gesture born out of guilt, and while I appreciated the sentiment, I decided I wouldn't accept it. Everything I have, I've earned through my own hard work. Buying my affection felt like a shortcut to reconciliation, and I wasn't interested in that. Then came the next shock. Jay got arrested. He'd stolen my grandfather's truck and crashed it into a streetlight 2 miles from their house. Miraculously, he wasn't hurt, but the truck was likely totaled. My grandparents kicked him out, and my parents canceled his college fund to help them replace the vehicle. Dad admitted they'd been planning to use that money for my surprise car. I told him I would have declined anyway. I'm perfectly fine with my old 2001 Cherokee. Jay's behavior baffled me. He'd never been this reckless before. I wondered if he was going through a severe mental health crisis, but I'm no psychologist. I'm an engineer. Despite everything, I decided to attend my mom's birthday dinner. I'm still rebuilding my relationship with my parents, and the promise of free food at a fancy restaurant didn't hurt. The evening was going well until my cousin R, who has never liked me, decided to mock me. When my dad pulled out his wallet for his ID, R sneered. "Oh, hide your wallet. Don't want my name getting into it." Her words stung, bringing back memories of years spent under the shadow of false accusations. Flushed with embarrassment, I snapped back. "Your friends probably say the same thing to every guy in your group because of your behavior." R is a known cheater, and my comment hit a nerve. She started crying, And her dad, my uncle, jumped in to criticize me. He even had the audacity to remind me I was still on thin ice over my brother's lies. Furious, I flipped him off and walked out of the restaurant. Later, my dad called to assure me I had nothing to apologize for. My mom, however, wanted me to apologize to keep the peace. I refused, or posted a vague rant on Instagram about toxic family members. But my aunt, ours mom, surprised me with a heartfelt apology. She told me she'd dealt with R and my uncle privately, and her even took down the post. My uncle sent me a one-word text, sorry. It wasn't much, but it was something. The real breakthrough came during a family therapy session. My mom apologized for not defending me at the dinner and for the years of mistrust and neglect. My dad followed suit, apologizing to all three of us kids for the way he'd handled things. Jay also apologized, admitting his actions were fueled by jealousy. While my parents have allowed him back into their home, he's on strict terms to rebuild trust. As for me, my contact with Jay remains limited. Forgiveness is a long road, and I'm not ready to walk it yet. Looking back, I realize how much this ordeal has shaped me. I've learned to value my independence, stand up for myself, and set boundaries. Rebuilding trust with my parents is a slow process, but I'm cautiously optimistic. If nothing else, this journey has taught me one thing. Family can break you, but they can also help you rebuild if they're willing to do the work. And for now, I'm willing to give them that chance. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My mom and sister tried to hijack my wedding for a baby shower. Now they're out of my life for good. I'm 28, male, and what I'm about to share still makes me question everything I thought I knew about family. It's about my wedding, but more than that, it's about how my mom and sister completely lost their minds over something that should have been simple. Looking back, I don't even know why I didn't see it coming. But then again, who would have guessed their entitlement could reach these levels? So, my fiancé Al and I had been planning our wedding for almost a year. We found the perfect venue, an outdoor estate, just the right size for the intimate, laid-back vibe we wanted. We booked it for July, and we're getting excited as things were falling into place. Until my sister, dropped her big news. She was pregnant. At first, I was happy for her. And her husband had been trying for years, and I knew this was a big deal for her. But what I didn't know was how quickly her pregnancy would become my problem. It started with subtle comments from my mom. Small things like, "Isn't it wonderful that A is pregnant? She deserves to be celebrated." Of course she did, and I had no problem with that. But then one afternoon, my mom called and everything shifted. So I've been thinking about A's baby shower. She started casually. It's such a special occasion, and the whole family's going to want to be there. Wouldn't it be great if we held it at your wedding venue? I laughed, thinking she was joking. Wait, you mean like at the same venue but on a different day, right? She didn't laugh. No, you could push the wedding back a bit. Just reschedule it so I can have her baby shower at the estate. It's the perfect setting for her, and it's not like the wedding can't be moved. I felt my heart drop. You're serious? Of course I am. This is A's baby, She's been through so much trying to get pregnant. Don't you think her shower should be in a place as beautiful as that venue? You and Al can just pick a different date. I was stunned. Mom, no. We've been planning this for months. The venue is booked, and everything is set. We're not moving the wedding for a baby shower. Her voice hardened. I'm just saying it's family. Family supports each other. You can have a wedding anytime, but A only gets to celebrate this baby once. I was trying to stay calm, but this was insane. We're not canceling our wedding, Mom. She sighed, clearly pissed. Well, I'm sure A will be disappointed to hear that. I hung up, thinking that was the end of it. I thought once she cooled off, she'd realize how crazy she sounded. But nope. The next day, A texted me. "Hey, Mom said you're not willing to move the wedding so I can have my baby shower there. Is that true?" I replied as politely as I could. "Yeah, we've already paid deposits and planned everything. We can't just move it." She fired back. "Wow. Hey, I didn't think you'd be so selfish about this." It's not like your wedding can't happen another day. My baby shower is more important. You know what I've been through? I couldn't believe it. Hey, I'm not being selfish. This is my wedding. You can have your baby shower somewhere else. There are tons of venues. Her response was cold. Well, I guess I know where your priorities lie. From there, things spiraled out of control. My mom called me again that night, and this time she didn't hold back. You're being incredibly selfish. I deserve this, and you're standing in the way because you can't move one little day. One little day? I snapped. It's my wedding, Mom. This is a huge deal for me and Elle. You're acting like it's nothing. Mom didn't miss a beat. You're not the only person in this family who matters. A's been struggling for years. This is her moment. You're going to regret being so heartless when the family turns against you. I didn't know how to respond. I was furious, hurt, and honestly a little scared of what my mom and A might do next. But nothing could have prepared me for the mess that was about to unfold. A week later, I found out just how low they were willing to go. It started with small things. The florist called me to confirm that we'd canceled our order, which was news to me because we hadn't. Then the photographer emailed me, saying they received a cancellation request. That's when it clicked. I called my mom, and she answered like nothing was wrong. Hey, Mom, did you or call my vendors and try to cancel everything? She didn't even hesitate. Well, I just thought maybe you'd come to your senses and cancel on your own, but you were being so stubborn, I figured I'd help things along. After all, it's just a wedding, right? I was speechless for a second. Then I lost it. You're sabotaging my wedding because I won't give up the venue? Are you out of your mind? She huffed. I'm doing what's best for the family. If you won't compromise, then maybe it's for the best that the wedding doesn't happen when you're being so selfish. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. But that wasn't the end of it. Oh no. The next day, I get a call from the venue itself. Apparently, my mother and A had shown up in person, trying to discuss rescheduling for A's baby shower. They had the nerve to sit down with the coordinator and act like it was a done deal, as if I'd agreed to everything. The venue manager was confused, so she called me to verify. Thank God she did. I immediately told her not to make any changes and that my mom and sister were acting without my consent. I couldn't believe how far they were willing to go. It wasn't just them wanting the venue anymore. It was like they were actively trying to ruin my wedding. I called my dad, desperate. He's usually pretty hands-off, lets my mom run things, but I needed someone sane on my side. Dad, I don't know what's going on, but Mom and A are trying to sabotage everything. They've been calling vendors, canceling things, and now they're at the venue trying to take it over for A's baby shower. For a moment, my dad was silent. Then I heard him let out a deep sigh. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was this bad. I'll handle it. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but the next day my mom called me, absolutely fuming. How dare you get your father involved? She screamed the second I picked up. He's threatening to pull my credit cards. He says he'll cut me off if I don't leave this alone. I didn't even feel bad. Maybe you should listen to him, Mom. You and A are being insane. Oh, so you're siding with him now? You're choosing him and Elle over your own sister? I couldn't believe her audacity. Yes, because you're both trying to ruin my wedding. I'm done with this conversation. But it didn't end there. Not even close. 2 weeks before the wedding, I get another call from the venue manager. Apparently, they had tried to book a surprise baby shower for the same day as the wedding. She told them it was supposed to be a double event, a wedding and a baby shower. I couldn't even process it. I immediately called A furious. What the hell are you doing? You try to book your baby shower on the same day as my wedding? Her response was pure entitlement. Well, Mom and I thought it'd be nice to combine the celebrations. Everyone's going to be there anyway, so why not make it a big family day? You're being dramatic. I felt like I was losing my mind. Hey, this is my wedding, not some family picnic. You don't just tack on your baby shower like it's a side event. She scoffed. You're being ridiculous. We're family. It's not that big of a deal. I hung up. I couldn't deal with her anymore. The wedding day finally came, and to my surprise, neither my mom nor A showed up. They decided that since they didn't get their way, they'd skip my wedding entirely. I wasn't even shocked at that point. It still stunned, but I couldn't let them ruin my day. The ceremony was beautiful. Elle looked incredible, and despite the family drama, everything went off without a hitch. The venue was perfect, and we had an amazing time surrounded by people who actually cared about us. After the wedding, I tried reaching out to my mom, thinking maybe they'd come to their senses. She sent me a single text. "You've made your choice. Don't expect things to be the same." I haven't spoken to her or Ace since. My dad, though, he's been amazing. He apologized for not stepping in sooner and has been helping me navigate the fallout. I'm grateful for that, at least. But as for my mom and A, they've made it clear where they stand. A few months after the wedding, I heard through mutual family members that they threw a massive baby shower, bigger than anything I'd ever seen for a baby shower, with extravagant decorations and the whole family in attendance. It was their way of rubbing it in, I guess. They made sure everyone knew I wasn't invited. I thought about reaching out again, trying to mend things, but every time I reconsidered, I remembered how low they went. They tried to sabotage my wedding, canceled vendors behind my back, and had the nerve to plan a baby shower for the same day. They crossed so many lines that there was no going back. I've come to terms with it now. Family isn't just blood. It's about who supports you, who stands by you when it matters. My dad showed up for me, and so did everyone who was at my wedding. As for my mom and A, they showed me exactly what I meant to them, and I'm better off without that toxicity in my life. If anyone reading this has dealt with entitled family members, you're not alone. Sometimes cutting ties is the healthiest thing you can do. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.